On September 4, 2026, AMD walks onto the biggest stage in consumer tech and opens IFA in Berlin. And if you care about running powerful AI on your own machine, without renting a cloud and without paying Nvidia, this is the keynote to watch. Because the star of the show is a new chip called the Ryzen AI Max PRO 400, and it does one thing that makes it stand out from almost every laptop part on the market. It can hold up to 192 gigabytes of memory that both the processor and the graphics share at the same time. That number is the whole story, and in the next few minutes I will explain exactly what AMD is expected to announce, why that memory figure matters so much for AI, and the honest reasons you should not get carried away. First, the event itself, because the date and the details are already locked in. AMD confirmed it will deliver the opening keynote at IFA 2026 on September 4 at 11 in the morning Berlin time. The person on stage is Jack Huyn, AMD's Senior Vice President and General Manager of the Computing and Graphics Group. The title of the talk is, quote, "The Era of Personal AI, the Future of Imagination." That title is a clue. AMD is not framing this as another spec sheet update. It is framing it as a pitch for AI that runs on the device in front of you, in your hands or on your desk, instead of in a data center you rent by the hour. Now let me be precise about what is confirmed and what is not, because this channel does not blur those lines. The Ryzen AI Max PRO 400 chips themselves are real, and their specifications have already been detailed across multiple independent outlets. That part is confirmed. What is expected, but not officially promised, is that this September 4th keynote will be the big public launch moment where AMD shows off the laptops and mini PCs built around these chips. So treat the hardware as confirmed, and treat the keynote as the stage where AMD is expected to make it shine. So what is actually inside this chip? The Ryzen AI Max PRO 400 series is built on AMD's Zen 5 processor cores and RDNA 3.5 graphics. The top model is a 16-core, 32-thread part, and it can boost to around 5 GHz. It carries 80 megabytes of cache, and it runs inside a flexible power envelope that system makers can set anywhere from 45 watts up to 120 watts. There are 3 chips in the lineup. The flagship is the Ryzen AI Max Plus PRO 495. Below it sit the Max PRO 490 and the Max PRO 485. One small but important detail. Only the flagship 495 is reported to get the updated Radeon 8065S graphics. The cheaper two share the same core idea but not the very top graphics tier. One quick note on the numbers. Most sources put the flagship's top speed right around 5 GHz, though a couple list it slightly higher at 5.2, so treat the exact peak as a small rounding difference rather than a hard promise until AMD says it on stage. But the headline is that memory number, so let me explain why 192 gigabytes of unified memory is such a big deal. In a normal laptop, your processor has its system memory, and your graphics chip has its own separate video memory. They are walled off from each other. AMD's design tears down that wall. The processor and the graphics share one giant pool. And modern AI models are enormous. A large language model, the kind that powers a chatbot, has to be loaded fully into memory to run. On a typical gaming laptop with 8 or 16 gigabytes of graphics memory, the big models simply will not fit. With up to 192 gigabytes shared, a machine built on this chip can load models that used to require an expensive dedicated workstation or a cloud server. Here is why that matters for a normal person, not just a data scientist. Running AI locally means your data never leaves your machine. No monthly subscription, no usage caps, no sending your private documents to someone else's servers. For anyone who wants a private AI assistant, a coding helper that works offline, or a creative tool that does not phone home, a chip that can hold a large model in memory is genuinely liberating. This is the exact pitch behind that keynote title, The Era of Personal AI. AMD is going after people who want the power of a big model without the cloud bill and without the privacy trade-off. And this is where the competitive stakes get interesting, and where you can see who stands to lose. For a while, the go-to machine for running large AI models at home was an Apple Mac with a lot of unified memory, precisely because Apple also shares memory between chip and graphics. AMD is now aiming straight at that niche with a Windows and Linux option. At the same time, it chips away at the idea that you need an expensive NVIDIA graphics card to do serious local AI. If AMD delivers, Apple loses its quiet grip on the local AI crowd, and NVIDIA loses a slice of the hobbyist and small studio market that could not afford its high-end cards anyway. That is the real story under the spec sheet. We are also expecting to see the actual machines. Systems built on these chips are reported to come from Asus, HP, and Lenovo, with availability in the third quarter of 2026, which means September is the window. Expect thin laptops and small desktop boxes that punch far above their size, aimed at creators, developers, and businesses. The Pro in the name is a hint too. This is AMD's commercial and business tier, with the extra security and management features that companies ask for, which tells you AMD sees this landing on work machines, not just enthusiast desks. Now here is the honest counter case, because a big memory number is not a magic wand. First, capacity is not speed. That memory is LPDDR5X, and while there is a lot of it, its bandwidth is far lower than the dedicated video memory on a high-end graphics card. So a huge model will fit, but it may run slowly compared to a real GPU. If your goal is the fastest possible AI, this is not that. It is about fitting big models affordably, not winning raw speed races. Second, this is an evolution, not a revolution. Zen 5 and RDNA 3.5 are refinements of what AMD already shipped, not a brand new architecture. If you were hoping for a giant generational leap, temper that. Third, remember that only the flagship 495 gets the upgraded graphics, so the cheaper chips are less exciting than the headline suggests. And fourth, these will arrive inside premium, business-focused machines, which usually are not cheap. The dream of a bargain local AI powerhouse may collide with a real-world price tag that only a professional would sign off on. So let me bring it together. On September 4th, AMD opens IFA with a keynote built entirely around personal AI, and the Ryzen AI Max PRO 400 is the chip meant to prove the point. The specifications are confirmed. Up to 16 Zen 5 cores, RDNA 3.5 graphics, and that eye-catching pool of up to 192 GB of shared memory. What is not yet confirmed is exactly which laptops, which prices, and how fast these models really run in the real world. Those are the answers to watch for on the day. If AMD nails the price, this could be the moment serious local AI stops being a rich person's hobby. If it fumbles the price, it stays a promising demo. Either way, it tells you where the whole industry is heading. Away from the cloud, and back onto the machine right in front of you. If you want the honest version of these tech stories before the hype machine spins them up, this is the channel for it. I will be watching that keynote live, so tell me down in the comments. Would you run your own private AI at home if the price was right? That is the question that decides whether this chip is a footnote or a turning point.